because those who negotiate contracts, especially with the Chinese, have to fight very hard to ensure that there's a favorable ratio of Jamaican workers to the Chinese workers. And there's always a very difficult point in the negotiation when the Chinese workers said, the Chinese contractor would say, but I know you Jamaicans, when it's raining, you don't come to work. When it's payday, you want 2 hours off, and so forth and so forth. We have to kill this myth by ensuring that we practice best practices at the workplace, that those looking on can recognize that the Jamaican workforce is internationally competitive. And we know this because when we go elsewhere to work, we perform better most times than the other workers. I'll rest my case for the time being and hand over to my professor, who will certainly mention the other aspects that we're not training in, but certainly the apprenticeship program.
I'm passionate about TechVoc training in particular. I wear many hats. I'm in charge of the research focused at the University of Technology. I'm the Vice President of Research and Graduate Studies there. I'm also chairman of the apprenticeship board, and I'm a director of a private provider for TechVoc education with Sitting Guilds of London Institute. So I wear many hats, and I'm on the HEART board as well. But I wanted this just very quickly, just to mention 2 things this afternoon. A little bit about the apprenticeship board. HEART NTA is set up, as you know, at the forefront for training TechVoc education in this country. And there are many modalities for getting the training done. And one of them is through an apprenticeship system. Now, I don't know how many of you are aware that an apprenticeship system is a structured arrangement, a tripartite arrangement between industry, the apprentice, and the agency that is responsible, government in many instances, responsible for the training program. We have had a training, an apprenticeship act since 1955. And when you go back and look into the archives, as I've done, in the 50s and 60s, we had one of the most perfect apprenticeship systems here in Jamaica that people from abroad were coming here to follow. We were the time when, in fact, sugar was king. And so therefore, when you walk into a sugar estate and sugar factory, you had all the various disciplines at the very highest level being trained. And the same is true for the railway, keeping the railway going. I mean, tremendous feat. But somehow we've lost the plot. We've lost the plot. Since 1955, we've allowed a situation where we have dwindled away that resource. There was once upon a time that with the electrical licensing situation here in Jamaica, people from England used to come here to do the electrical licensing program. That's been going as one of the longest certified licensed TechVoc discipline in this country. And we have lost that cutting edge. We need to get back to it. And so therefore the apprenticeship board is now up and running, and we will be unleashing on the Jamaican public about 120 new apprentices will be signing a contract between employers, the apprenticeship, and the agency. There are different modalities. We're having a modern apprenticeship system. No longer this old business of come here, apprentice. Yeah? Those days are gone. We're going to it's college and the world of work. And it's going to be dovetailed in a very sort of meaningful way. And so you'll hear much more about it, but the 2 minutes I have is not enough. But I want to talk about something else that's very passionate about, and it's about connecting the dots in terms of, and I'll just deal with that, and we can talk about apprenticeship thing afterwards. Incidentally, before the apprenticeship board, by the way, before I get into the other bit, is that we are going to be paying a stipend to the apprentices. And the stipend is going to be a dual role between the employers and that of the apprenticeship board. And the stipend will be a function of where you are on the apprenticeship ladder. In fact, the new apprenticeship system will take you all the way up. So if you have a degree and you're very good in the theoretical part, have never done any practical work, you can be an apprentice within the area that you've studied. So it is that flexible, the flexibility that Mr. Finnegan spoke about. But the passion I want to talk about, connecting the dots. In Jamaica, we are very good at certifying people. So you go to UTech and you get a certificate. And you go through the HEART program. HEART has been around for over 30 years. And you become certified. So you train a lot of welders. We have the best welders in the world. In fact, many, many years ago, Chicago Bridge and Iron Company used to come here to recruit. How many of you know about that? Yeah? Our welders. I worked in Africa for many years. And I remember sitting at the airport, and I saw a guy drinking. And I thought, he must be Jamaican. You know how I knew? He had his finger stirring his drink. So I went up to him and I said to him, "You're from Jamaica?" He said, yeah man. Glad to see another yardie. And I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "I'm doing some welding in the jungle." They were doing some pipeline, and he was doing X-ray wells and so on, working for Chicago and Bridge Iron, recruited from here in Jamaica. Now, what has happened when I talk about sort of connecting the dots? So we now train welders, and we have UTech certification, UTech PhD, HEART, this, but we don't connect it to the profession. That we now have the certification, but we're not licensed to do it. So you have a situation where to touch a cleaver boiler, yeah, and and it's insured, if it's an insured thing. You as a welder, not care how good you are and how many PhD you have. If you don't have an AWS ticket, that's the American Welding Society ticket, to say that you are a qualified welder, you can't touch it. Because it's written into the contract. So you have a situation where in Jamaica, and with the logistic hub coming, you won't be able to touch a ship, not care how qualified, certified you are, until you are licensed that you have reciprocity across borders. Absolutely vital. So we run our courses at UTech. And I'm going to be very honest with you. And we do our engineering programs. And we come out with a BSc and MSc. And when you go to Canada, yeah, you're going to have to start right at the bottom. That's absolutely damn nonsense. Because what we should have been doing is connecting the dots and saying to those persons elsewhere that, look, there's a registered engineer worldwide. Chartered engineer, it's a structured system in the world. Chartered engineer, incorporate engineer, engineering technician, and you're registered. Our programs should align themselves. We can have our own program, you know, but align them. That when you get a BSc and you become a PE in Jamaica, you have reciprocity around the world. And that's the missing link. And I'm going to be sounding like a broken record, and Mr. Finnegan will tell you. I'm going to sound like a broken record, and in the twilight of my days here in Jamaica, that we're going to have to get that right. We're going to have to get our youngsters. So in my private institution, with the Sitting Guilds program that I offer, after 2 years of taking the students on the CAP program, we're now running it, offering that program, after 2 years, and they do a parallel Sitting Guilds course, they become registered by the Council of Engineering Institute in England to use post-nominals after their name of Chartered Engineering Technician. Worldwide, when them come off, the first day them come off of the ship, or the plane in this particular case. I'm thinking about when I went to England in 1966. They will be getting the same salary because they are registered. So Mr. Finnegan and we go back many years. I don't want to tell you how many years. He talks about my profile. He was, when I was head of engineering at UTech, he was in fact a student. No, he kicked me around because I'm now very old and decrepit. So now then, so in Jamaica, in terms of the trades and technical trades, if you want a plumber, Mass Neil is there. How you get a plumber in Jamaica? You know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody that recommend you. No, sir? Yeah? That ought not to be the case. It ought not to be the case. You get certified, and when you then have enough years experience, you get your license. Just like all the electrical licensing people. And they're proud of it. The status of the electrical licensing body people. The status, them don't worry about a PhD or anything like that. He's licensed. And so therefore it is critical that we do that with the other professions, technical, vocational things, that you become licensed, you have your ticket, and therefore you have the wherewithal and the consumer have the wherewithal that they can take action, legal action, against an individual who doesn't perform the job that they were employed to do. Now, are we ready for the logistic hub? And the answer is absolutely no. Because we have to connect that dot. You will not be able to do some pipe connections on ships unless you have a license and is understood by Lloyd's of London, because they're the ones who are going to insure the ship, that you are particularly licensed. You could not care how much PhD you have. And this is and yet we have it here in Jamaica. You can have 10 PhD in electrical engineering. And if you don't have your license, you can't get your house passed, even if you wire it yourself. And that's the way it should be with other skills area. I take my car to the mechanic, and him tell me all sorts of things that has happened. I pay a whole heap of money, I drive it out, and it collapses. And I have no recourse. But if the person was licensed, yeah, and I could go to a licensing body and report that individual, yeah? So you're protecting the consumer, and at the same time, you are protecting the individual, but you're upping the ante for the whole business of the TechVoc path of our training here in Jamaica. For 30 years, over 30 years, Heart NTA has been, Mr. Finnegan, it's bad. That for 30 years, and he said, you think anybody proud to tell us that I have NCTVEC 5? Not at all. But them tell us that I have a degree. Yeah? We have to get away from that if we're very serious about the opportunities that there are. I told you I was very passionate about it, and therefore, Mr. Moderator, I want to thank you. I've overstepped the mark, and forgive me if I sound a little bit pushy, but I will push until the day I die. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. Thanks for that.
Mr. Chairman, fellow gentlemen, the table, ladies and gentlemen, I think after the second speaker, you know, he reminded me that I know him, and yes, I must know you. I actually built my house from the income I cast. Those days they weren't so strict on taxes as they are now. And I hope that as they now become strict on taxes, somebody will become strict on tradesmen. Professor made my job so simple. It's as if you actually tutor me what to say. But because I'm saying from my passion, I'm just going to reinforce what you have said And I didn't remember knowing this gentleman. Still don't remember, but when he mentioned UTech, it's a must. My name is Winston Neal, Managing Director of Jamaica Plumbing Supply. One of the few licensed plumber in Jamaica, which I would not even consider myself anymore a licensed plumber, because more than 12 years, I'm trying to get my license to be renewed, and no one can renew it. So it means I cannot be a licensed plumber. I recall asking a few people who claim they have a plumbing license these days, tell me, man, tell me what you did to get your plumbing license. Where did you do your test? And nobody cannot break it down. Well, I can remember my own. I can take it right now in front of St. Andrew Technical High School. Don't show the building, but the building is there still, or the structure is still there. I had to go into a hole and make a sewage connection, etc., etc. Even after doing that, it still took me a while to get it because I didn't have any money to give anybody, and I did not know any good friends at the time. Now, saying that to say this, Jamaica workforce, are we ready for the logistic hub? No. You hear it before, you hear it again. I live on a road, and I can send any of you to drive on it now. Every single day is water running from the road, more than that we consume in the neighborhood. And if water not running from the road, a backhoe is there digging up with a pickup marked NWC. Now, when I get my license, it was done by the National Water Commission. The National Water Commission is the one who's supposed to be governing the plumbing industry in Jamaica. Now, as much as Jamaica Plumbing say, let's save water, and if NWC said water is life, God help Jamaica Plumbing. You know, because as I said to you, there's more water running on the road. And I can bet you right now, if you drive up there, more than one location, because I came down this morning, water is running on the road. Now, if we cannot fix our domestic water supply, or we gonna partner with the Chinese to work on the logistic hub. 7 years ago, I made my first visit to China. When I went there 7 years ago, I was disappointed because I was looking for some Chinese man in some hat, broad hat working. You don't see anything like that. But I met a young man who was working for the government. The government employed him to seek business throughout the world and to pay him. I returned this year. That young man, when I get there, he was slim as the slimmest person inside here. When I get there this year, he picked me up at the airport with a 2014 BMW. His belly is this big. and he live in a multi-story building, and he owns his own business. He said to me, Winston, I'm just doing you a favor, you know, because you are my friend. When we just start, you were the one who helped us and guide us to do business. Now remember, now, I'm Jamaican. The only certificate I have, and it's the one from Lyde in London. Plumbing coursework. Thank God for the distinction. It made me look good. I cannot use it in the USA. USA is not bad, because they might squeeze me in because they can't run me out. But I cannot go to Cayman right now and run a foot of inch and a half drain pipe. I'm in business for 21 here in Jamaica. I have been considered and I have been told by these men here and others in Jamaica, and the proof of the income of the business, that Jamaica Plumbing is one of the biggest companies in that category in Jamaica. No, I'm really glad I'm not really sitting immediately beside Mr. Finnegan, because I'm getting enough blow already. But Mr. Finnegan, I want to commend you on what you're doing. I'm sounding like my pastor now. You know, I think you're doing a very excellent job. It's not little too late, but it is not enough. Because when I interview anyone that come to me with a level 1, level 2, or level 3, I hear some say them have level 5, and Mr. Tai would say, boy, them do them start teaching level 5 certificate as yet. And they make up their own thing, not knowing, but they feel that the higher the numbers goes, the better it is. You know, and when I interview them, I said, tell you something, man, how do you get there? Well, I had some simple question, you know. Where would you drop a 4-inch pipe and a slab from a decking, a raw decking? The only thing you have to guide you is either the plan or the steelwork. In fact, I used to use both of them because I was never bright. So I have to make sure. And one thing I don't believe in is put in a pipe and go back and make an adjustment. You know. And nobody can give you the answer. So something is wrong. We need a governing body that when Miss Beverly Hills or Miss Waterhouse or Mr. Waterhouse can put up in 10-story, him can call and say, listen, we need a plumber. Can you recommend so-and-so? Let me tell you, there's a young man who was working for me just last year. I recommend him to do 3 jobs, and those 3 jobs let me decide I have nothing to do with plumbing but sell plumbing anymore. One of the jobs was at my pastor's house. One of the jobs was at my church, and one was from one of my banker. Right? He took a man who is a laborer, leave him to run in the pipe. I have a laborer there teaching him to run in the pipe. Everything wrong, everything leak. He went to the church and he installed a pump. Everything leak. Is my driver have to correct it? Just yesterday, I was going to Montego Bay to meet with the people on the Sunset Jamaica Grand. I mean, that's an opportunity that the Mexicans are doing it. They are refurbishing 700 rooms. They said they got it out. They are putting in 300 new buildings. I wish I wasn't have to be here now because every member of my staff working right now. I have to fly out tomorrow morning, and every member of my staff, most members of my office staff will be working late tonight. Because everything they came in to do, thought they would find people, and they have to be searching for material, they have to be searching for professionals. So I'm saying, if we are really serious about this thing, sir, we cannot stop at Archers. We cannot stop at an association. We can't depend on NWC because they're not getting it right for themselves. And I have a look for Master Builders Association. I joined Master Builders Association, I don't remember, probably some 20 years ago. Some of the members probably never see me at one meeting. Well, yes, I get too busy making some more money. And I get older. And I have to be running up and down more than I used to. But I really joined Master Builders Association when I see the problem face us 20-odd years ago with we don't have a good apprenticeship. And NTA came in and doing something with intent to be good, but I want to call it brainwashing young people. Maybe it was never intention, you know, because I have some good friend who work in the department, Mr. Winston Campbell. He's my mentor still. Mr. Fowling. Yes, I'm going to wrap up now. And you see, you make me miss my thought. So I'm just saying that we need to have master builders now. I don't want me to talk about master builders now. When I joined Master Builders, all I was really looking for is to get some help to guide the Plumbing Association to a better path where these little things can be enforced. And until we do that, the logistic hub going to come and pass us. We're going to see them working, and it's few Jamaicans gonna benefit from it. The government will, I hope. Thank you.
We are running out of time. We have another, a closing off session at the main hall when we finish. But just quickly, maybe one or two questions, but not too many.
Pertaining to the construction industry, I hear the gentleman in the middle speak about
Professor Gossett.
being licensed. My question to him is that at what stage would you say an individual is ready for the world of work or is a qualified worker?
As I said earlier, that we train some of the best welders. But the fact that they're certified, yeah, the fact that they are not licensed, we don't have a licensing body to control that particular discipline. We find that we get foreigners with that ticket, the licensing component. They will come and they will be the supervisor getting the greenback. You do the work because you're good at it. It's not to say that you're inferior, not at all. We produce at UTEC, people don't know this, engineers who keep the wheels turning and to come from UTEC. Any industry you go in, and for engineers, you'll find good UTEC graduate. We hit the ground running. But the fact of the matter is that in Jamaica we have registered engineers. But it is not connected to the world order. So when you leave and go Canada and you have a PE from Jamaica, you're going to start at the bottom there. And all I'm saying is that, look, we know we're good. We know the program is good at Heart MK. All you need to do is now align it and connect the dots and say to them, listen, we want you to accredit our program so we get reciprocity. Right now you don't have any reciprocity in terms of, we lickle and we tolerate. We have a own thing. But the doctors now don't do that. They make sure that when they leave here, many of them receive an FRIC because they have that particular professional body looking at that license them. We need to have the same thing for vocational education. The only one that is regulated for license, and I made the point, was the electrical installation. Yeah? Now, we try it with, we're trying it now with, say, for example, pest control. There's a pest control licensing body. So you ought not to just have a can and put a can and say, no, I'm a pest controller. Those days we have to make sure that we ask as consumers, are you licensed? So you have recourse.
My passion is that all of the students here are going to achieve at the highest level so that all the urgings from the three gentlemen can be realized. We may not now be ready for the hub, but let us hope that we will be ready for the hub.
You have been trying to implement this for example, you said the electricians have one. Is it that you're trying to implement one for the plumbing, the carpenters, all other aspects, or you just want to do an overall association? For example, like you have IMAJ to do an overall law to license system so that everyone has it, because that question that you're talking about has come to me before, because what I'm saying is that, for example, I have a house to build. How am I going to get in contact with somebody? I have to turn to somebody and say, do you know a plumber? Do you know an electrician? There's no words, and you can go online and say, is there a site that you can go on to talk to find licensed persons in that aspect, or somebody that is able to do it? So is there a possibility that you're working on getting this done?
And it's persons like yourself now and us who are going to have to say, listen, let's get our act together. In Trinidad, you have licensed plumber. You can't do any plumbing in Trinidad if you're not licensed. Regardless if you have a BSc from UTEC in mechanical engineering. So you cannot do that. They will not connect you to the main sewer. You will not be able to do a connection from the main sewer to, say, a house if you're not a licensed plumber. Ministry of Industry and Commerce, we as consumers, as people, to say to the minister, listen, the fact of the matter is, because not only that, you know, not only that, one of the important things that I was trying to get out as well is the status of our craft level. That's an important thing. A person with a license, who has a licensed electrician, he not run down for get no PhD. Yeah? Because we have a whole heap of PhD who can put in a light bulb. So the point is, and therefore, I'm just saying that because we don't have a status. I'm just giving you just 2 minutes.
Go ahead, Professor.
I have a friend of mine who is a successful businessman, not Mr. Neil. And he has a carpenter that has been working with him for the last 20 odd years. He is a top class carpenter. He has made money for this man, hands down. The gentleman has a daughter working in the business. She has a BSc from the most prestigious university, UTech, in Jamaica. She decides she's going to marry to him. You know what the man said? You think me saying I've got UTech for going to marry to a carpenter? And he has been making money for the man. He's a top carpenter. That happens nowhere else. Yeah, in Germany, people were serious. When I was brought up in the UK, you can tell by the accident that I have. Yeah? And I tell you that this, I was a toolmaker, but I could go on the golf course and rub shoulders with the top surgeon, neurosurgeon, because the respect, I was a toolmaker. You in Jamaica, you tell a man, you're a plumber, and them go outside, wait there out in the rain until I come. And you're out there, all those things must change. You cannot do that to a licensed plumber.
My name is Andrew Terralong. I'll be sitting in for Mr. Gordon, who is my principal, but he was shot by the chicken, so he's not able to be here. Now, for this workshop, we'll be looking at maximizing benefits from the special economic zones. Just a definition of term, well, one of the main aims of economic zones include increased trade, increased investment, job creation, and effective administration. Jamaica commonly introduces what we would call liberal policies to encourage overseas business and investment regarding usually like taxation policies, custom policies, etc. Now, economic zone benefits may mean we are able to provide, or in our case, trade goods at a globally competitive price. Jamaica finds itself in a unique position, maybe similar to Panama years ago when they implemented the Panama Canal. Our location, our geographical location, puts us in the center of the north, south, and east-west supply or shipping lanes. A logistics hub is expected to serve 800 million, a market of 800 million, my memory is kind of slipping me, but right. So a market of about 800 million and would become, or would be marked as the gateway to Europe and Africa. It would become an important part of the global value chain, and we'll be preparing for the 12,500 TEU ships passing through the Panama Canal in 2015. This would ultimately make us the transshipment and air cargo logistics hub of the Western Hemisphere, would be strategic handling point for bulk commodities, and also the center for ship repair and dry docking, aviation repairs, maintenance, etc. Now, with all of this, with all that I have just said, the real operating definition of an economic zone is determined individually by each country. Now, here to tell us basically or make a presentation on how we can benefit from special economic zones, we have Mr. Donovan Wignall, to my right, who is the president of the MSME Alliances. And we also have Mr. Ainsley Brown, who is policy analyst from the Logistics Hub unit. I expect that Mr. Carvel Stewart, who is the president of the Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica, and Ms. Sanjay Johnson, who is account executive at Development Bank of Jamaica. Hopefully they'll be here by the time Mr. Deans and Mr. Wignall are finished making their presentations. Sorry, Mr. Brown, sorry, and Mr. Wignall. I'm just going to allow Mr. Wignall to come first and make his presentation.
I'm going to try and get through this part of the presentation as quickly as possible so we can get to Mr. Brown and Mr. Stewart if he gets here and then the question. But let's just get into a little formality with the economic zones and its relations to the MSME sector. Now, traditionally, special economic zones have been regarded as centers of economic prosperity and growth while providing employment for many low-skilled persons. SEZs, otherwise called in Jamaica, are specially planned economic zones operating outside of Jamaica's customs territory. Now let me pause here for a second. Outside of the customs territory does not necessarily mean outside of the island of Jamaica, just another territory within Jamaica that is extra to our usual customs situation. With the attractive incentives, where licensed activities will take place with the requisite support trade and business facilitation. And trade and business facilitation includes legislation and special rules, etc., that will govern how the SEZ operates, how those zones, or people in those zones operate. Situated at the intersection of the arterial trade routes, where the main stream of container traffic splits into feeder ports, a special economic zone has significant centrality and accessibility to hinterlands, and hinterlands that is beyond the port, going back as far from the port as possible. UNCTAD 1990, that's the source. One such zone already exists close to the port of Kingston, Garmex Free Zone, and the other is the Caymanas Economic Zone. Now, Garmex Free Zone is not, you couldn't call it a special economic zone, as the definition of special economic zones would say, but it's an idea. It's something similar to what we're talking about when we mention special economic zone. The Caymanas SEZ is yet to be developed, right, Mr. Brown? We're getting there. Now, what's the game changer? The expansion of the Panama Canal, that is the game changer. The expansion of the Panama Canal, due for completion in 2015, and of course this had been revised to about 2016, 2017, and Mr. Brown can back me up on this, he has the current information, right? Will change the dynamics of shipping in the Western Hemisphere. 12,500 TEUs, and TEU is 20-foot equivalent units, and those are container units, the smaller ones, the 20-foot, and 12,500 of those ships will bring goods from the Far East destined for the eastern seaboard of the United States and Canada through the canal to the Caribbean. They will then be shipped to North America, replacing the existing sea-land route through western U.S. ports. Now, Jamaica's strategic position. Jamaica, unlike Miami and other competitors in the region, can provide the most cost-effective and timely movement of cargo on the air-sea movement. Based on Jamaica's strategic geographical position, the current global recession, along with, well, it's not really current, we are coming out of the recession, along with the rising cost of fuel, has created a modal shift to this sea-air movement rather than the usual air-sea only or sea-only movement. State-of-the-art IT and telecommunication infrastructure, we have that. Development of the special economic zone will be the catalyst for overall development once we get that going. Now, what are the benefits to small operators? Licensed activities will take place within the requisite supporting trade and business facilitation, and that speaks to the right legislation and the right rules of trade for people who exist in the special economic zones. Businesses may see their taxes cut by more than 50% within the zone, not outside. Permission to import goods manufactured in the zone into the Jamaican territory without any restrictions other than the application of import duties and taxes. So therefore, right away, the cost of logistics will go down. Benefits to small business operation continues. Export growth and export diversification. We can export a lot more stuff because a lot of people now will be attracted to the zone. So we're talking about foreign direct investments, where people want to come into those zones because of the special rules and favorable rules that would apply. More foreign exchange earning, of course. FDI, as I said earlier, government revenue should increase. And of course, most importantly, the technology transfer, meaning that high technology companies would want to come into the zone to operate, and of course that technology would then be inevitably transferred to the Jamaican economy, where, for example, suppose somebody wanted to manufacture car parts inside the zone. The machines and the technology for those zones would have to be more than likely operated by Jamaica in the short to medium term. Jamaicans. Existing small business operators will have the option of expanding their operations to meet new markets and provide avenues for more efficient manufacturing through the special economic zones. MSMEs should ensure that their businesses can operate competitively with foreign and local businesses when supplying goods and services to clients all over the world. And we're speaking to standards now. Whatever standards exist over the world, anywhere else in the world, should exist in Jamaica. So therefore, if we're manufacturing, I'll use the shoes, for example, whatever is manufactured here should be of the standard that it can be exported to anywhere in the world. Expanded activities to include commercial and professional services such as warehousing, transshipment, informatics, and in addition to all types of manufacturing and processing. You will have a lot of need for warehouse spaces in the SEZs. Incentives for private zone developers to facilitate private entry into the zone development. We're talking about construction people now. Globalization of production with relaxed export requirements. We don't have a lot of export requirements now, but I'm sure as far as customs is concerned, some of those rules will be relaxed once the due diligence have taken place. Supply utility service, water, sewage, and telecommunications, etc., to the tenants of the special economic zones. Capitalize on the export incentives. MSMEs can capitalize on the export incentives, goods, services from domestic sector treated as constructive exports. Simplification of customs procedures, this is a key one, by the use of single form and automated systems and other technology. Customs definitely has a culture that really will not, well, the current customs department has a culture that really could not survive in an SEZ environment. So in that vein, the customs department is actually making those necessary changes to facilitate SEZ operation. There is some resistance, I think, but eventually, the culture would have to change, just like the culture with the tax offices and other places in Jamaica, to facilitate modern business structures. Greater range of business support services and specialized facilities. For the zone to operate efficiently, of course, you have to have modern facilities, you have to have a greater range of services, more service offerings, and of course, the people who offer services will have increased need. There will be increased need for those people in the zones. For the zone, I think Sanjay should have been here. Financing is the most important thing. The DBJ, their rep would have been another panelist. Definitely financing would be necessary, and of course MSMEs have special financing needs, and most people are going to enter the zones would be SMEs, so therefore there will be some work there to be done as far as financing is concerned. We have that challenge right now, but I think it's being worked on. We have a far ways to go, but the important thing is that the work has started. It is without doubt that the establishment of special economic zones in Jamaica will encourage MSMEs to engage in value-added activities through the goods and services passing through the hub. And of course, I'm talking about the logistics hub, while enjoying worthwhile incentives. And of course, you know, the IMF agreement currently stipulates that we should not have the whole menu of incentives. And of course, whatever incentives are given will have to be passed by WTO as well, because some of these would be ruled, incentives that we currently have would be ruled as illegal by the World Trade Organization. The next step in this evolutionary process, then, are for MSMEs to arm themselves with the necessary information to fully capitalize on the development in order to maximize on all the benefits. Now, the hub is something that is coming. I've seen the presentations over and over again, and I think it's a brilliant idea, the ideas that have been posited publicly. Once we get past the idea, and I think we have, for the most part, get past the idea that Goat Island is not the logistics hub, but the entire Jamaica is the logistics hub, then we'll see that the entire Jamaica will be involved in this particular, I call it a national project. And I think for the people who are studying logistics, for the people who are currently offering services, should now evolve into people who can operate within those said zones, because I think those zones would be centers of economic growth and activity. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Wignall, for clearing up a few things for us and advising us of the trade advantages. I'm going to ask Mr. Brown to come down and do his presentation.
You know, this thing says maximizing the benefits. I'm going to take a little bit of a different angle to my presentation and speak more of what are the opportunities. And I'm going to speak to, I have two parts to the presentation. What are the opportunities in terms of special economic zones? And then what are the opportunities now? And there's a reason why I've differentiated those two things. One is that we currently do not have a special economic zone, or a modern, I should say, special economic zone regime in place. We have our old one, and that's in the free zone. And the world has moved on past that, and what we're doing now in terms of the special economic zone is to upgrade that regime to more the modern age. And so therefore, there are some opportunities that exist now without the special economic zones being in, or regime being in place, and I'll try to touch on those briefly. But in terms of the special economic zones themselves, once the policy and legislation and regulations are passed, which is expected for next year. In fact, we had a policy forum on October 6th and 7th, which advanced the policy considerably. The documents can be found on the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce's website, if you want to take a look at those. And then also there's supposed to be a green paper tabled in Parliament by the end of the year, dealing with the policy. So what are the opportunities expected from the modern special economic zones? I think there are three distinct but interrelated opportunities. The first one is in the construction of the zones themselves. Now, there will be a variety of zones, and the requirements, construction requirements, layout, design, and all that will vary depending on, one, the location of the zone and also the focus of the zone. So whether the zone is maritime focus, for example, a dry dock or a commodity port, the requirements will be different. Whether it's aviation focus in terms of a long-haul airport or maintenance and repair facility for aircraft, whether it is ICT, BPO focused, all of this will vary. Whether it's digital content providers or a call center, the requirements will vary and be very different than, say, a dry dock. Also, whether or not it is, and Donovan went into some of more this side, the production and distribution side of things, where you're going to need more warehousing and factory space for assembly and so forth. So that's one. Two, off-site infrastructure. And Donovan again touched on some of it, the road, sewage, fiber optic, transmission lines, and all of those things. One of the things that we know from studying economic zones around the world is that off-site infrastructure is critical to the success, or one of the critical success factors. If you don't have proper off-site infrastructure in place, you're basically setting up yourself for failure with zones. And we have seen several failures around the world where they have the incentives set up and everything, and there is no road leading to the port, or there is no port. Right? The third category, also before I move on, that second, the off-site infrastructure also functions as a template or a mechanism for the backward linkages from the zone into the rest of the economy, and that is also critical, another critical success factor in economic zone development. The other one, and this I would advise you to read the policy to get a little bit more detail on this, is what we call urban support areas. We have learned from our developmental mistakes of the past in terms of, and a good example of this is in the hotel sector, where you have a nice hotel on the one side and then, what would you call it? Informal settlement. I didn't want to use another word. Sorry. I was trying to think about the word. An informal settlement on the other side. We can't have that. We have to provide proper and adequate housing and social support, such as hospitals, schools, and the like, for the people that will be working in the special economic zones. So that covers the opportunities basically to come. What are the opportunities now? And this is not telling any tales out of school or any secrets. Kingston Wharves is embarking on an expansion, and what they've done is they have applied for free zone status and have been granted free zone status. So they are a special economic zone of sort. But what is anticipated, or what will happen, is they will eventually grandfather into the modern special economic zone regime. But they're not waiting for the special economic zone regime or new special economic zone regime to come into effect. They're using what we have existing. There are at least 2 other proposals that I know of, there may be more, having to do with people applying for. One has submitted their application already, and the other one is putting together their proposal in terms of free zone status to move into special economic zones. So if you look at where I said about constructing the zones themselves, with Kingston Wharves, they already have a degree of construction, so it's more expansion. You have to look at what off-site infrastructure they potentially will need. Maybe not so much because of where they're located, but the other ones, I can tell you, at least one other, which I can't reveal right now, will need off-site infrastructure based on the location that they've selected. And in terms of the urban support area, they'll definitely need that type of thing to be done, because there's nothing, the nearest settlement to that area is quite some distance. So closer construction of housing will be required. And you will hear shortly, once the approval has been given to the free zone licensee, who and where it is and all of that. So be prepared for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Brown, outlining some of the critical issues related to the policy. Now, I'm going to take a couple questions, and then we can wrap up. But I'm gonna ask a question before anybody else, since I'm already up here. Mr. Brown, you spoke about the infrastructure requirements and so forth. A lot of things that has to do with the logistics hub really rests in the hand of the government. Doesn't? No. All right. You wanna.
Well, finish your question.
All right. You wanna explain basically the decision-making process in terms of the logistics hub itself and moving forward with it, as well as speaking from a construction standpoint, what can the construction industry or the Incorporated Master Builders Association do in being proactive as all of this comes on board?
Can you hear it? Yeah. All right. In terms of decision making, I would say that one of the things that people have to understand is, and it's not just because of the IMF agreement, but that's part of it. Government don't have no money. So this has to be private sector led. So yes, we are saying we have outlined the framework of what we want. And for instance, Goat Island. Initially, Goat Island was never part of what we were discussing. And it became part because an investor recognized an opportunity based on our framework and where we're positioned in the country and said, oh, we could benefit from this, so we're going to put a proposal towards the government to say, this is what we want to do, and it fits within your frame.
Right.
So in terms of selecting certain things, like it's not an accident that we say we want a commodity port. That's not an accident, because we know that 85% of global trade is in bulk.
Right.
And many of those commodities come here and are inputs into our production, bread, wheat, all those types of things. So we know that we need to position ourselves to take advantage of that. We're also in the middle of a big commodity, either growing or extracting area. You have Canada, United States, big into those things, and then in South America, Brazil, Argentina, and so forth. So we sit in the middle.
Right. That's understood.
So there's an opportunity there for do some degree of processing, or even just storage or blending and all these different types of things.
Right.
In terms of what that answers.
Yes.
So, and in terms of what the master builders can do in terms of being proactive, you're already doing it. You're engaging with the policymakers and getting the information to your members and so forth. In terms of, I would say, in terms of pressing, one of the things that you guys have always pressed on and admire you for it is the update to the building code. We desperately, and I will acknowledge and admit that is definitely needed. So keep pressing the government to get that done.
Are there any strategies in place that would so fit the desires of foreign investors that would mitigate against some of those challenges?
In terms of the fiscal incentives, it's not that there won't be any, that it's going to be a low tax, not a no tax. Like the free zones is no tax. We're going to a low tax regime, so I just want to clarify that. In terms of you're saying the manpower and so forth and the people, you know what the funny thing is? Take a Jamaican, and if you go abroad, and
I said the culture is hard to change.
Exactly. It's all about the culture.
So if you go abroad and you ask about Jamaicans, the outlook or what people perceive as Jamaicans are considered hard workers, grafters, people that you want them on your team, your workforce. So it's not that we're not capable of it, we're more than capable of it. And I think what will have to happen is more accountability in terms of within business, within government, right across the board, more accountability to say, no, we're not going to do it this way anymore, we're going to do it in a more efficient way. That's the only way forward.
Are we going to have warehouse storage based on just in time, where we store goods for whatever supplier or manufacturer to be delivered just in time?
We anticipate that, yes. Because in fact, Kingston wants that is part of their model.
How is that information being put out in the public domain to let people know, people who are not at this seminar or people who haven't attended any seminars or any informational sessions? How is this information being put out there so you can know that come to the ministry or come to this person or come to this place, present us with your ideas on what you can provide and follow these steps to get there?
PR and educational campaign. So there's stuff on the radio, stuff on the net, social media and so forth, website. We're using all the different
channels and so forth, and you'll see some informational advertisements also coming on TV shortly.
Okay. Mr. Donovan Wignall, President of MSME Alliance. I see you guys took it pretty easy on him. And also Mr. Ainsley Brown, who is a policy analyst with the Logistics Hub Unit. Thanks for your participation and your attention. Thanks again.
Jamaica National, our major sponsor, a major sponsor this year. Let's hear for them, please. They have been a wonderful sponsor. Jamaica Public Service Limited, another great supporter of this event. General Paving Company, Asphaltic Concrete Enterprise, Delta Supply, Sesco, keep it going, Sur Paving, High Pro, EnviroShake, Jamaica Mortgage Bank, Care, Jamaica Netlink Limited, Development Bank of Jamaica, Jamaica Mortgage Bank, Cement Company, Abtax, City of Kingston Credit, and the Port Authority of Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, a wonderful evening to you. And Heart Trust. Let's hear it for Heart Trust! Hey! Wonderful, good. Have a wonderful evening. Next year, same place. Peace.